Hello, and welcome back to the Bird Brief. This is Stephanie Jenkins Aslett, avian ecologist, and I am really excited to have you here. In our last episode, we uncovered a major breakthrough in research, or we talked about it. We talked about a major research breakthrough regarding why birds make any vocalizations at all during nocturnal migration. If you haven't listened yet, definitely go back and download episode 9. And today we're going to take that conversation even further. We're going to explore how scientists use machine learning to sift through that massive, messy data set and detect patterns in bird calls. Now, I have to admit, machine learning isn't my strongest suit. It really isn't a suit I put on ever. So that's why I'm excited to introduce our special guest. Dr. Zan Aslett is here. He is a remote sensing scientist and geophysicist with a deep expertise in analyzing large data sets, like those 18,000 hours of recordings that I just mentioned. And very importantly, he is also my husband. Please don't hold it against him. Actually, I interviewed him yesterday and I realized I didn't do him justice with a proper introduction. We just got into it and started laughing and then it was done. So here he is. I would like to welcome you to the show. How about you introduce yourself?
Sure. I thought I would get a formal introduction, but that's okay. So I'm your husband, Zan Aslett, and I am not an expert in birds, machine learning, migration, or most other topics. But I'm interested in them, so I'm glad you invited me to your show finally. I've been waiting for an invitation for quite a long time, and so it's good to be here.
You know what? I'm happy to have you here. I will say it's under a little bit of false pretense because I invited you here to tell me about machine learning. Mm-hmm. For bird songs, what they're finding is they have a ton of bird songs that they've recorded, and they don't know what the bird sounds mean, and they think that they're communicating with one another up in the air in the middle of the night. And they use machine learning to isolate what they thought they were communicating.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So with that, a lot of people, when they see either it just shortened to ML or machine learning, they're like, what? Are you trying to make a crane lift something up? So what's the basics of machine learning?
Yeah, well, again, I'm not an expert. I'm still trying to figure out what it is. But I guess... I've used it for, in my daily life, whether it's ChatGPT type of LLMs that are useful for giving us, responses. But for the project, like what you're talking about, you have to collect a lot of data. And the whole point is to find patterns that may be imperceptible to human beings. And so that's incredibly powerful. So if you set up a model and you structure it so you can find those patterns, that can potentially help you find answers to some of the questions that you mentioned about communication between birds.
Okay, that's awesome. So is it different than just building a model like a statistical model?
Yeah, machine learning's built off of some pretty sophisticated statistical models. And, without diving into it, it is much more complex. And a lot of it can be abstracted away. It can turn into a black box when you train a model. Trying to get the explainability out of the model can be difficult or impossible. So yeah, that's why going forward in the future, pairing experts in that field with domain experts like biologists and avian ecologists like yourself is really important to be able to maximize the opportunities for using that technology. But, nobody can figure it all out. There's only so much time in the day, and we all bring particular expertise. So,
right, like in collaboration with people that know more about you, about some aspect of your research that you need to pull in order to make your research more understandable.
Yeah,
and figure out your bottom line. What does it mean? I heard you mention ChatGPT, and I think a lot of people are using it right now. I'm using it, but maybe people use it for a variety of different purposes. Can you give me maybe 2 very just helpful uses for ChatGPT in anybody's life, birds or not birds?
Yeah.
What would you use it for?
I would go back to the example of how Google came into our lives. We were probably both around before the internet was a thing. I remember in high school getting internet, and then it became a lot better. And then Google came out and kind of revolutionized the access to information and, what I could look for and help myself learn more about the world and things I cared about, but didn't have the time to pick up a book and read necessarily. So ChatGPT is, kind of the next step in being able to access really unique knowledge at your fingertips. It goes well beyond Google because it's very curated, which can be good or bad. In my daily life, I can learn a really technical aspect of a problem super quickly. And another example I could give is, writing code or scripting. Well, I can perform at the level of a professional programmer now, and I just wasn't that good before. But I've learned a ton through using these tools. And then the last example I would give, you can reverse engineer something that's really complex, like code, and just basically give it the code and then have it explain it back to you in terms that you understand. You know yourself and how you learn.
Right. So you find code and you're like, okay, I think this is what I want. But wait, what is this really doing? It's not working the way I want it to work.
If I have a technical article in a field I don't understand and it's too complex, I can tell it to explain it to me like it is just looking at the records on the shelf. In the voice of Willie Nelson, tell me, what this scientific article is all about, and it can do that. It's really good at that. So I think we'll be using even more of it. There's a lot of hype, but there's a
lot of
justified.
Actual use.
Yeah.
Everyday use, but then also for our professional, pursuits.
Yeah. There's no artificial intelligence there. That's kind of a misnomer. But it is, for what it is, it's powerful for sure.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks for spending your time to talk a little bit about machine learning, a little bit about ChatGPT, and how we're using this, knowledge for understanding birds better. So,
no, you've got it. Thanks for the invite.
And so now I just actually have one more person I'd like to introduce. The last 2 episodes, a very good friend of mine has come on the show and helped me. And I just wondered if you would come up to the microphone and say hi.
I just say hi to birds. I love birds.
Good job. He loves birds, and he really does. Anyways, well, thanks so much for listening. I hope you can tune in the next couple of weeks for the next rundown, or should I say feather down, of the birds we love. So with that, I would really like to thank my guest today, Zan Aslett. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
And I hope to return to the show at some point in the future.
Sure.